Hello fellow modelers, Bruce here. In the past, when I've talked to you about kit manufacturers of old, I primarily look at manufacturers who were making structure kits. I think the only exception I made was when I did a video on Ulrich models where we looked at their line of rolling stock. And today we're going to take a look at another actually older manufacturer of rolling stock and other items called, well, I'm not sure whether they're called scale rail models or whether they are called Scale Railway Equipment Company. And they were out of West Roxbury, Massachusetts, no zip code. In trying to find any information on this company, I was pretty much unsuccessful. I can tie down the time period a bit from a little bit of investigative work and some hints that they have given me. One of the hints you already heard, which is no zip code, which means this box and kit were made before 1963. On the other end of the spectrum, they mentioned that they had trucks. Oh no, they haven't mentioned it. I want to tell you. They have trucks from, the company is Central Valley, and they have supplied arch bar sprung trucks and snap-on kingpins. So we will... I was able to look up the history of Central Valley, and they started production in 1947, right after the war. So we now have 1947 on one side and 1963 on the other, and I think there's most likely this kit was somewhere in the early to mid 50s, and the paperwork in here has been opened and closed enough times that it's cracking on the folds. So I've photocopied both the plans and that little flyer. And you know, a couple things we can see. The kit with trucks but no couplers was $3.25. And they were at the time a member of the NMRA. In the beginning of the hobby, it was very important for companies to align themselves with the NMRA so that modelers would be certain that everything conformed to the correct scale and standards, etc. And this is a Derrick Car, so it's a flat car with a derrick on it. And if you look at the sales pitch, it says, let me just make sure you can read the whole thing that it's in. Yeah, you can. The good old days never had scale rail models, and it's a kit for the modeler who wants the very best. And it's SR number 4, which makes me think scale rail's number 4, so their fourth offering. And they claim this type of car still saw a sales service and work on many railroads and interurbans. Authentically reproduced. It has no plastic parts. That was an advertising point for them. They're proud of it. It has pre-cut wood and detailed castings, metal castings, and complete with Central Valley's arch bar sprung trucks. Watch for our new line of box and refrigerator cars, the new line. I assume, therefore, there was an old line. The kit's directions, pretty good with diagrams labeled with letters and coded back to the written diagrams. So, building the basic flat car and putting the bolsters underneath and showing where to mount the couplers. And you can see it's an arch bar truck, so they provided some wire for the arch bars. Arch bars. And then they go into the adding the detail for the unit. And so, I'm torn right now as to whether to build this old kit or save it for posterity. But And the reality is, certainly my kids will not be interested in it. And I don't know if there's a collector's group or a museum around that would be interested in these things. So I'm leaning towards building it. And so if I do, you will see a follow-up to this video. I'll put it right on the end of this part of it, where I take the parts out of the car and build it. Now let's see what the parts look like here. The cardboard, the paper packet that had the parts in it is itself somewhat falling apart. And I am hoping that all the parts are still available inside. I see a couple parts of the truck assembly, of how to mount the trucks, this quick snap that they talked about. One part of it in this truck is in place on the truck. I think you can see in the middle there. A nut on this side and a pin coming out here. Here's that same nut and pin here, so at least they're not lost. And I will put them back into this envelope. And I don't want to take the other parts out right now, but they are, for the most part, the metal castings for the derrick itself. Here's metal for the arch bars, and the wood to build the unit itself. And while I have it open, let's just check out these trucks. Let's say they're 70 years old. Let's see how well they are moving. With my finger on it, they feel pretty good. They still roll pretty good, and this was without any lubrication or anything. So that's that truck, and here's the other. Again, feels good with my hand putting pressure on it, and roll. Yeah, I've seen freer rolling ones, but with a little bit of lube, they will be fine. Alrighty then, so I think we'll build this one, and I'll document the build. And I don't want to get carried away right now with any big structure build for the moment, because I want to get some work done on the layout. And so I'll do this while stuff on the layout is drying, etc. Alrighty, talk to you again soon. If any of you know anything about scale rail models or the Scale Railway Equipment Company, please let me know. Alright, talk to you again soon. Okay, taking the first steps to building the Derrick Car by Scale Rail Models that we had discussed. And the first step I usually do in building any structure out of wood is to stain the wood with my alcohol and India ink stain. And as soon as I touched some of this wood, I realized that I was not dealing with basswood. And it does not take the stain anywhere near the same. It's the same alcohol and India ink stain I use for all my builds. It's 2 teaspoons of India ink into a pint of 91% isopropyl alcohol. And normal basswood takes the stain and looks like this piece of wood and this piece of wood. These are from the same batch of stain, but on basswood. And now you look at this other wood and you see a much redder, richer coloration. As a matter of fact, the alcohol and India ink didn't change it all that much. But anyway, that's my first step. Next step is I'll take it off of this wax paper where I put it on when I take it out of the bath, alcohol and India ink bath, and let it dry. And I'll sort it into size, and then we'll begin the build. Talk to you again soon. Okay, as I said, I think in the first part of this video, after I stained the wood, I would wait for it to dry and then sort it into like sizes, and that's what I've done so far. And at the same time, I photocopied figure 1 and taped it to my work surface. And I have put 2 pieces of my favorite tape for this. That's the Scotch brand permanent double-sided tape, which is anything but permanent. And I will build right on the diagram, no wax paper on top because I've made a copy. And in sorting the wood, they weren't color-coded on the end like some kits of the period were, but you could figure it out both by the touch of your hand and by looks. And if you look at the underframe that we're going to build first of this flat car part, there are longitudinally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beams that seem to be in the drawing of the same thickness. And so if you look here, I got 4, 5, and 6. Now, besides those, there were 4 other long pieces contained in the package. They look on the surface about the same length as the main beams. They are thinner, so they're probably a scale 2 inches thick, whereas these are probably a scale 4 inches thick. So and when you look a little closer, you see that 2 of them are longer than the other 2. Here's the 2 short ones now on my right, and the 2 longer ones on the left. And again, doing a little staring and comparing at the diagram, you see that mixed in with these main beams, the 6 main beams, are 2 that are drawn thinner. That's this second one in from this side and the second one in from this side, and that's the shorter of these that I just had. They're the same length as the main beams, and the last 2 thin ones turn out to be go on the very outside of the frame. They're like the sideboards on the flat car. So I'm going to put those aside for the moment, and I'll even put these other 2-inch boards aside. The instructions say, once you have your paper taped down, to start by putting one of the 8x8 end sills in place at position A, which is this position. And I just had the square there to show that I do have it perpendicular to this side. So that's in place. Now the next thing to do is to take 2 of these main beams and glue them to just the very outer edge of the end sills, like that. One there, and one here. A little dab of glue on that end sill here. And once that's done, get the other end sill and glue it in place. And you got yourself a nice rectangle, and you'll start adding the other boards inside. Alrighty, I've done a lot of these when I was working on my car certificate for the NMRA AP program, achievement program. I built, I don't know, 6 or 7 scratch built. Basically start out with a flat car. I don't care whether you're going to build a box car or a gondola or a flat car or Derrick Car. You always start out the same way. You build a flat car. And so I built a lot of them. This is very common territory. And so I'm going to proceed, and I will rejoin you in a little while. Talk to you then. Well, progress again. Oh, excuse me. Let's see what we've done here. We have gotten all of the timbers that form the underframe of the Derrick Car glued in place. And as I mentioned before, when you're gluing these, so you have the end frame in place, and these are buttoned up into it. So these are all butt joints, and there's a tiny little bit of white glue, or in my case Aleene's glue, that you can get in there. And when you wiggle them in place and so forth, some of that gets worked off. So what I do on that and to strengthen any end butt joint like that is after I get them in place, I come back with some super glue and just put a dab on each of the joints here where it comes into the end of the car, and same thing on the other side. Even though as you put the decking on, which you see I've started, that adds a lot to the strength. This is not a static display. This is a car that's going to be moving around the track. So yeah, just take the time to put a little bit of extra super glue there, strengthen that joint. So now we're gluing on the decking, and the decking took, whatever this wood is, has taken the stain differently, and you're getting this little zebra effect, which I really don't like, the striping. So once all the decking is on, I'll go over it with either a Prismacolor marker or a similar marker, trying to even out some of that striping. One other thing I just want to mention while we're at this point in the build is that anytime, and I've mentioned this before, it's worth repeating, anytime I'm making a loading dock where you're gluing a bunch of these things on, or a deck of a car like this, even sometimes putting siding on a house where you're putting strip wood vertically, let's say on the front of the house, I don't work from one side all the way to the end, because when you get to the end, if one piece doesn't fit, you're either going to have a tiny small gap there, or you're going to have to make a little sliver to fill in, and it's going to be very visible because it's on an edge, which is where your eyes are going to be looking. So what I do is, I start from, let's say in this case, from the left. Now I'll do a similar amount from the right, and I'll keep alternating till I get to the middle. And if the middle happens to, fit a piece perfectly fine, and if I have to narrow a piece, it's buried there in the middle where your eyes are not going to go immediately and find it. So always, alternate when you're doing something like this, loading dock or whatever, come into the middle, and then if you have to mess around, or when you have about 4 pieces left and you see there's going to be a little bit of a gap, you can spread that gap over a couple so that it's not even obvious. So there's a lot of things you can do, but do it in the middle of the car. Okay, I'm going to finish up gluing on the deck now, and then come back and talk to you when they're at that spot. Talk to you then. Well, the upper side of the Derrick Car, there's the flat car, is pretty much done. Ready to pry up off of the paper. I've marked where the stake pockets go. They have them shown on the diagram, and I just put a little pencil dot on the side. There's supposed to be 12 stake pockets, and there's only 10. The others got lost during the time period this thing's been floating around. So first of all, I have plenty of Grant Line stake pockets. I could put them on, but I'm thinking of just putting maybe the end 4 here, because the derrick itself gets placed over here, and so these would not interfere. So 4, 8, those might be the only ones I put on, we'll see. But anyway, I am missing 2 of those. So when I flip it over, what has to be done? The bolsters have to be glued in place and ready for the trucks to be mounted. We got to take care of the truss rods. Here's the 2 pieces of wire. They have to be bent to shape. They give you a diagram for that. And what's missing? Oh, the couplers. Couplers, bolsters for the trucks, truss rods. Now, when you flip it over, if you were going to add some simple brake lines, for instance, if you were building a car like this to be evaluated in the NMRA's achievement program for the cars, it's very simple, but you would do that next before you install truss rods and bolsters and everything, because you have to run a few pipes, which is really just brass wire, to connect the activating rod levers and the brake cylinder and so forth. But it is really quite simple. But you would do that next, and then on top of that you would put your truss rods, your bolsters, and so forth. So anyway, I'm not going to put any brake equipment on, and when I have it flipped over and we start working on those 3 items, I'll come back for an update. Talk to you then. Okay, more progress on the scale rails, models, Derrick Car. On the underside, I have the bolsters on. I have these two, they serve the same purpose as a queen post. This was fairly common in the early days of building wooden cars. And you're going to bend the truss rods up and over those. And then they'll get inserted under the bolsters. So I got those on. I got the pads on for the couplers, KD coupler boxes. By the way, this car measures from tip of the coupler pad to the tip of the coupler pad 32 feet long. To weight this car later, I might glue some BBs or something under here, but right now bolsters are on. These are those, they're kind of fancy. You call them snap-ons by Central Valley. What's buried inside the bolster, that little shiny thing that you see, is a commercial snap, like my wife Bonnie would sew into a dress to, set of snaps to snap it closed, a female side and a male side. What you see here is the female side buried inside the bolster. I think you can see in this diagram here, now that's the underside of the bolster. So here's that snap-on. It's a commercial piece. It's not something they made. They went out and bought it at a sewing shop. And this is a gasket, that, not a gasket, but a fiber washer that brings it up flush to the bottom of the bolster. And so when you glue this down, you flip it over, glue it down onto the underside. The female side is facing up, and that's what you're seeing here with that shiny thing. So that's a dimple in a commercial snap. And on the truck, sticking out of the truck's bolster, they machined and this brass post that you can see will snap into that snap and swivel. I tried one, it works fine. This side, this whole post is threaded, and you have a tiny little brass nut on this side. So the idea is that these will snap into place when we're done. Hope it works. In my test it did. However, normally the way I adjust coupler height after I put the KD coupler pad on here and put the trucks on and test the coupler height, if it's if the coupler's a little bit too low, I normally insert some of the KD fiber washers on top of the bolster and between the bolster and the truck to raise that up. But you can't do that here because if you raise that up, that snap is not going to snap into the hole. So I'm hoping that the coupler height is going to not cause a problem, but if it does, I'm going to have to get, either the KD couplers that are high, too high, not center shank, but upper shank or lower shank. So I'm hoping that that's not the case, but we'll see probably tomorrow. Here's the truss rods. I have to bend them to shape, cut them to size first, bend them to shape, and put them in. Then put the couplers on. I still have to put in place the stake pockets. I have them on here, painted a rusty color. There's 10 of them. And there's the Derrick itself, painted black. So we're getting there. Should be a nice car, we'll see. Well, been a while since I built a car, since of this vintage for sure. All right, give you another update soon. Okay, just about everything is done on the underside of the car. Bolsters are glued in place, the couplers are in place, KD number 5s. Truss rods are installed, and I did not use the staples that they gave us to make the stirrup steps out of. They wanted you to take those, bend the tops over, as you see here, drill holes and insert them in the side. First of all, one of them was missing, so I only had 3 of them. But beyond that, I've shown you in a video how I make my stirrup steps, and just starting with some brass wire and flattening it and using a jig. So I've done that, and finally I've put the stake pockets in, at least the 4 down here. The derrick is going to be mounted up above on this side, so I've left those, since I was missing some, I left those out. And put the 4 in on the, what I'll call the freight side of it. So I'm ready to now pop these into place, and once I've done that, you can see the pins protruding on the bottom there out of the bolster. Once I've done that, I'll check the coupler height, keep my fingers crossed. Then I can start adding a few things to the top of the deck, glue the derrick in place. I haven't decided whether I'm going to put stakes in those stake pockets or not. I have got some 3x3 stock that I could use. I tested it fits. So we'll see. Alrighty, talk to you again soon. Alrighty, a few minutes later, I've snapped the trucks into place, and they pop in with that nice sound, just like if you have a set of snaps on some piece of clothing. I had put a drop of oil on each of the axle tips, so it rolls pretty good for something that's as old as this is. And luckily for me, it lines up quite well with the gauge for coupler height. So, I'm good on the bottom. Just thought I'd show you a minute how these swivel pretty good. And I guess they were kind of expensive to make. You had to machine those posts and so forth, so I don't know when they dropped out of the line, but I had never come across them before. So anyway, next up, brake staff and brake wheel, put the derrick on, and then decide whether I'm going to put the stakes into the stake pockets or not. Like I say, the 3x3 does fit nicely in there, so I could put them on. They tend to break when handling, so I don't know. We'll see. We will see. Alrighty, talk to you soon. Well, I've finished the build on the Scale Rail Models Derrick Car. It was fun working on a 70-year-old kit. I don't know, somehow whenever I finally build a kit that's been laying around for 50, 60, or 70 years, I don't know, it just gives me a sense of satisfaction. So let's see it run. This is on the Bangor Slate branch of the Jersey Highlands Railroad, which is standard gauge HO, and I use code 100 track. One of the concerns with some of the older cars is that the trucks, the flanges on the wheels on the trucks were kind of deep, and usually they're fine on code 100, but sometimes not on code 70. But I did test it out on some Code 70 track, and it worked fine. So yeah, this could run on either the Jersey Highlands or the Slate Run. Well, let's just bring this ahead. Oh, look at that. There's John's little switcher that he gave me. I told you it would be pulling cars and on the railroad. Little maintenance away train, and there is the Derrick Car. Now, it's weighing light compared to the NMRA's recommended practices for weight of a car, but you know what I could do. That's why I have this old stack of ties on there to see what it looked like. I could put a load of ties and bury some lead inside the load, build the load around a hunk of lead to get the weight. The problem with a light car is A, it doesn't normally track as well, and secondly, if it's in the middle of a train where every other car is heavier and you start to back up, usually is when it gives you a problem. It kind of buckles and derails. So I might want to add a little weight to it, but yeah, so you could easily see I could do a stack like that and have some lead buried inside. I also have some HON3 ties, which are shorter, so that would leave more room around the stack. I have 2 packs of these I picked up someplace. They're probably ancient Railcraft products, 1,000 in each pack. So we'll got plenty of them. I can play around. So if I do make a nice stack of ties, I could then probably put the stakes in the stake pockets, look like it's holding them in place. So yeah, again, a fun build. Let me just continue having it go on its way, maybe pull into the siding here. I'll just bring it back a minute. Well, there you go. It was something I was squeezing in between working on the upper deck scenery and so forth, and I like to have 2 projects going on so that sometimes while I'm waiting for glue to dry or paint to dry, I go over to the other bench and put a little time in on the other project. Okay, as usual, if you enjoyed this video on the build of the Scale Rail Models Derrick Car, please give it a thumbs up, and if you've not already done so, please subscribe to my channel. Talk to you again soon.